It's interesting to note that sometimes in Hasidic discourses, when they want to explain a deep concept in higher world, so they would start from the world and then explain it in the person. Sometimes they would start from the person and explain it in the world.
Are you back on this?
What I'll do is I'll start from the person and then try to give an understanding how it's in the higher world. In a person, there is a soul, and there are the character traits, personal character traits in the person's soul. In the different stages of the character traits, as they are in the person's soul, there's different stages, there's different levels. There is a level as the person's soul is existing, and we know that because there's a person's soul there are also character traits there. Mm-hmm. But then there is a level where the character traits become an entity for themselves. We know that they're there, and they're an example for that would be, I'll just mention that example because that gives a deeper understanding how we look at something. Do we look from above to below or below to above? For example, in the previous Rebbe, in one of his talks, in the Kutei Buddhim, which was when he was in Poland in the 1930s, the previous Rebbe says, I'll say it first in Yiddish and then in English. Just thinking from which side I begin, from the above to below. Alts is elikus, elikus is alts. Everything is godliness, godliness is everything. So the question is, what does this mean? The answer is simple. When we say everything is godliness, that means that there is an everything. And there we have to derive that in reality it is godliness. What is concealed? What is the power? What is the energy behind everything? It's godliness. On the other hand, when we say godliness is everything, there is no everything. There's only godliness. And the godliness makes up everything. And which means the whole mitzvah, the whole entity and matter is basically godliness. The same thing is also when we speak about the character traits in the soul of a person. There is one that the soul is everything, is the character traits. There's another one, the character traits are in the soul. If we say, for example, the soul is everything, that means there is no entity of character traits. We know that but they're so part of the soul, like something is part of the nucleus. It's not like a general principle.
Can I just add in like a fire, like a flame? That's another one. Or maybe like a flame during the day, you can't see. It's maybe they're different things. Or is it a flintstone?
A flintstone. A flintstone is like
which is not actually there. It's not the potential to.
It's the potential. So Chassidus explains that when we talk about the character traits in a person, there's different levels. There's a level that the character traits are part of the soul, and the character traits do not stand out as character traits. There is no functions, and there's no feeling, there's no emotion, there's nothing yet. It is just that the soul contains, as the nucleus, it contains the character traits. Then there is a level at which point we could say the character traits are in the soul. When we say the character traits are in the soul, that means there are character traits, but they're so tightly connected in the soul that they still don't stand out as an entity, but we're talking about character traits. They are there. This is the difference between the world, as Rabbi Sitter mentioned, the world of Ak, which is like the blueprint. Everything is there. Odom Kadmon, and then comes Akudim, which we're going to discuss tonight. This is how we have 10 attributes all in one vessel. 10 lights in one vessel, which means...
I think every time someone comes in, it knocks out the other person.
Yeah, that's what it seems. So just let her do it.
Keep going.
So therefore, when we speak about Akudim, it is 10 lights in one vessel. What does this mean? And how does this mark the beginning of a whole chain of worlds? So I'm going to go into detail. What does it mean, a vessel? What does it mean, light? We're not talking about physical dishes. I think I might have mentioned in the previous time that it was once in a certain shul, in a certain synagogue, they gave over a discourse, a Hasidic discourse about the world of chaos. That the world of chaos collapsed, the vessels collapsed, and now they have to collect the bits and pieces from all the sparks, and by us doing mitzvahs, so we elevate, we refine all these sparks. So there was someone there, a shul person that was in charge of the shul, that felt that this person that came to give this over really meant physically that the dishes in the school broke. So therefore he says, guys, people, we want you to know, this was in one of the shuls in Newark. Might as well have been your grandfather's shul, Rabbi L'chaim. It was in those years that they used to give over discourses, figuring that people understand the discourses and they have a background. But in a sense, it actually they actually realized that we're speaking about a very delicate level, on a very spiritual level. And when we're talking about vessels, it is only the reason we use the word vessels, the example of vessels, because it's vessels for a light. It's like a wick for a flame. But not that there's literally physical vessels there. Not till way lower than that. So therefore, when we speak about Elam HaKudim, which is a world that has 10 lights in one vessel, that means it marks the beginning of vessels. It marks the beginning of the receiving worlds. The worlds are referred to also as vessels. They are receiving. And not only they receive like a wick, which keeps the flame down, but they are actually containing the flame. They're containing this revelation. The 10 attributes have 10 separate vessels when it comes to the lower worlds. But in beginning it starts with one vessel, and they're called akudim. Akudim is from the word akeda, tied together. They're all tied together as one.
So you're saying this is the beginning of vessels, even though it's only one vessel?
Right. This marks the beginning of the 10 attributes as it begins with vessels. 10 revelations and 10 vessels.
So they actually, I think the Ari says they are 10 vessels, but the vessels are so light that it's not considered as distinct. So we call, relatively speaking, it's called one vessel because the vesselness is...
Okay. That's okay, but Chassidus, when the Rav Shnei Zalman of Liadi, when he speaks about it, he brings always from Kabbalah that it's akudim b'kevi echad.
Yes,
like,
correct. That's what the Ari says, but then he kind of qualifies what that means.
Akudim yesh gam kinyan v'shakeli echad sha'iris and zemabchin. Right.
Yeah, in other words, that yes, the Ari says it's one keli. And then he says that means the following, that the vessels
very delicate,
are very
closer on the level of light. Yeah. So this is basically the beginning, marks the beginning of vessels. Then comes the next world, which is called Elam HaTeo. Elam HaTeo is the world of chaos. The world of chaos, why is it called the world of chaos? Because the 10 revelations, the 10 attributes that take place in Elam HaTeo have 10 vessels. Each one has their own vessel. But there's another problem here. The problem here is that the revelation that's revealed there, each one is revealed with their fullest essence and intensity. And because it's such strong revelations, one cannot coexist with another. And one does not allow the other to coexist. And therefore this brought about the downfall of that world, spiritual world. Again, a very spiritual world, because the first physical world that there is our physical world. So basically, this was the Elam HaTeo, was the world of chaos. So
I just want to mention that the world of Tohu also has another name for it. In what it was originally named, so to speak, and then when it didn't work out, metaphorically we call it Olam HaTov, but it's originally called Olam HaNikudim, right? You actually have it here. You have it in parentheses. Olam HaNikudim. Nikuda means a point where each light is a point within a particular vessel, and that they didn't have. The main reason why there was a breaking is because there's no hiskalos, there's no inter-inclusion, no ability to partake as some being that makes room for the other beings that have some distinctions.
Right. So basically, Elam HaTeo is called Nikodem. The word Nikodem means one dot. When for example. Example of a child, for example, By a child, for
Child
example,
wants something very strongly.
wants something very strongly, and you can't
candy.
negotiate, because by him it's all in one dot. It's the fullest intensity. It's the emotions that is basically screaming out of the child. By an adult, the person could juggle in their mind two different things in the same time. And therefore, we say Elam Hateo is similar to Nikodem. It's one dot that has the whole intensity, and because it's not broken down, and therefore it's not negotiable, and therefore does not allow itself to blend together or mix with anything else, because it is with its fullest. As Chassidus brings the example for that, like everyone is screaming, I'm the king. Ano Emlech, I'm the king, from all these 10 attributes, and therefore you can't have 10 kings together in one place. And this is what brought about the collapse of Elam Hateu. In Chumash Breishis, in the beginning of the creation, in the first of the 5 books, Moses, it is mentioned, Va'oretz ha'isaseu v'aveu. The world was chaos, was empty, desolate. This is basically the hint that there was a spiritual world before, and that was a world that was chaos because it actually did not exist, it just existed for a short time. There's an interesting question that's asked, and the Rebbe Marash explains it in a very interesting way, the 4th Rebbe of Chabad. He says, what was the purpose of that world? If it didn't exist, just existed for a very short time. I mean, there's no measure of how many units in time because there was no time there.
And there's also timeless, so even though there's like Olam HaTikun kind of already begins what we say, the correction, like in economics, you have a crash, and then you have, or actually it's interesting there, we call a crash is actually called a correction sometimes. If it was overinflated, if it was a bubble, what do they call the crash? They call it a correction because it was. So in fact, the Shvira might be also seen as a correction, but we call it Shvira, and then we call the next thing Tikkun that comes after the Shvira. But I think the answer might be, I don't know which mimer the Reb Marash, but I'm saying it's probably based on the Ari himself, who basically says that this is the only way to get Bechira ultimately, to get free choice. In other words, we have to make things not so good, so that there's hiddenness. God is hidden, and that there's holiness in the very things that tempt us. And if we, so I don't know.
It's interesting. This Maimon was said 40 years ago by the Rebbe. 40 years ago, Tishrei time, around the November, October. And this was based on a whole sequence of the discourse of the Rebbe Marash said it 100 years earlier. So it's 140 years ago. And the Rebbe says that this is a unique concept that's mentioned in the Rebbe Marash Maimon, which is a Chiddush.
So let's hear it.
The Rebbe Marash said it. That the idea of bringing revelations in vessels, although it was for a short time, but that marked the beginning to allow things to happen later in such a format. Vessels in light. It was even for a while, but in introducing these two together, this brought about, made the potential for the next world and the lower worlds that found.